You know, nobody seems to be stopping it. So if you've never seen In Living Color, go peep out a couple episodes. I think you'll enjoy yourself.
Or get it on Amazon. There's 4 seasons. It's not that much.
It's not hard to come by. I do recommend it. If you've never seen it, I do highly recommend it. And Jim Carrey's great on it, as is everyone else. And I think I mentioned it last week with the Ace Ventura character, the overly oversharing gay guy or something like that is absolutely Ace Ventura. So if you ever want to see how that started, that's really cool as well. But check it out; it's a great show. Anyway, back to The Mask. So the comic book that this is technically based on, and I say technically,
loosely,
extremely loosely,
as in the character is.
The character resembles it.
Yeah.
And Stanley Ipkiss shares his name, and I think Kellaway is the same name as well. Pretty much nothing else.
Bacon Brand too, I think. I think.
Maybe. I don't remember, in all honesty. I read it fairly recently. I don't remember it. To be fair, as much as I'm about to talk about it, not a great book. The base concept of The Mask was created by Mike Richardson in 1982. It first saw life as a single sketch he drew in 1985 for APA5, an amateur press publication created by writer Mark Verarden. After starting Dark Horse Comics, Richardson pitched his concept to Marvel Comics, comic book writer and artist Mark Badger. The outcome was The Mask, with QUE, strip that ran in early issues of Dark Horse Presents. Badger's strips became increasingly political, and Richardson ended the strip in order to bring the character back to its original concept. Artist Chris Warner was hired to revamp the character based on Richardson's original APA5 drawing and created the definitive look for the character that was given a new launch in 1989 in Dark Horse's Mayhem anthology. Writer John Acudi and artist Doug Mankey were hired to create a new adventure which became the very popular use of the character, a combination of Tex Avery and the Terminator, which is pretty accurate.
Mm-hmm. That's where this movie,
No.
Nothing to do with
this movie. No. It honestly, this is the comic. If you've read the original one, this is what I'm talking about.
I mean just a Tex Avery cartoonish of it all.
Well, yeah, the Tex Avery.
That's what they took.
Yeah, they definitely took that.
They took the more fun-loving stuff out from the book and left the more darker.
Yeah, they
blood,
yeah,
bullets, and
very
mayhem.
Much so.
And left that in the book.
Yeah, they made this
because you don't make $350 million in 1994 making this movie.
Yeah, well,
you make making this movie, yes, making that movie new.
Yeah, not so much. Mayhem was canceled after 4 issues, but in 1991, Acudi and Mankey continued with the Mask 4-issue limited series, which introduced one of the Mask's antagonists, a mute British Hulk named Walter. The run was among Dark Horse best-selling comics. Following it, the company issued a succession of miniseries around the Mask, with various antagonists and protagonists wearing the mask. These series concluded in 2000 with the DC crossover Joker Mask, in which the magical mask finds its way into the hands of Batman's arch-enemy, the Joker. It was later revived as a spin-off series called Itty Bitty Mask, then another revival called I Pledge Allegiance to the Mask, which will be released in early 2020.
I think they just did it.
Did.
I think it just came out within the last week or two.
It was when I was doing these notes was like 2 weeks ago, and I remembered it was coming out in early January. I just didn't know when. That's why I went early 2020.
Which is nuts. That it's like, something that started that long ago that wasn't that popular.
It's still not, and I don't even think.
Does that happen? I mean, you work in the funny book business.
We didn't even bring it in.
Really?
No, I've not seen a copy.
There you go, man.
There's just no call for it.
But, I mean, as a person in this business, does this happen with series that get revived and then but still has no support? So why did it get revived?
No, yes it does, and no it doesn't. If that makes any sense, because you look at it and we can only look at it from our prism, and I even say that with a book that from my own comic book store experience is that everyone loves something. Right, yeah. They made enough of these Mask miniseries.
There's someone out there with mask tattoos and
somebody
loves
is totally
the shit out of
into
the mask.
This shit. I've just never run across that person, which is why we didn't bring any copies of it, because it's not something we're going to put normally on our shelf, because it's just we don't think it'll sell. We don't have any of the Mask books here, although mind you, most of them are out of print. We don't have any of them available. No one really seems to care. If somebody asked for it, we would have brought it in. No one's asked for it.
Mm-hmm. So I've looked into it. I wouldn't. I'm fine with this movie on Blu-ray, and that's it.
I got to tell you, I read the first miniseries. I couldn't go any further.
Yeah, so
it just wasn't good. It's very awkward in tone. Even though it's supposed to be like an adult comic, it's still written like it's for a child.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't... The tone is very off. It's very strange. And unfortunately, I saw the movie first. I think that that definitely affects it as well, because I'm looking at it in a very strange light of, like, why is it, like Stanley Ipkiss gets killed. Not too
far
early on. And it's just basically the mask gets worn by several people, which I'm fine with, but like the character of Stanley Ipkiss is an asshole.
Yeah.
Like, he puts on the mask, becomes addicted to wearing it, and becomes a militant prick. That is not something I want to see.
This movie is not that.
Yeah,
and
no, very much so.
Thank God, because I would not enjoy this movie nearly as much.
I'm about to explain more of what I said here. In all versions, the story initially revolves around a magical mask which bestows on its wearer reality-bending powers and an altered appearance, characterized by a large set of teeth and green head. The mask affects the personality of the wearer by removing all social and moral inhibitions, causing the wearer to become insane. In the original comics, characters who wore the mask would become cruel anti-heroes, or at best worst murderers, vengeful villains, or at worst worst with ultra-violent tendencies, even if it was not the wearer's original intention. The title of the comic book originally referred to the mask itself, and not the character it unleashed. In early stories, the character was referred to as Big Head. It was not until the film and television series that the character became known as the Mask.
Right.
So, that's the comic book in a nutshell. I personally can't recommend it, but if you're interested in a really weird take on this character that you've known from the movie, I would say go for it. If you can find it, because, like I said, out of print.
Good luck.
So the production of this film. In 1989, Mark Richardson and Todd Meyer, who was executive of Dark Horse Comics, first approached New Line Cinema about adapting the comic The Mask into a film. After having seen other offers, the main character went through several transformations, and the project was stalled a couple of times. One unused mask idea, according to Mike Richardson, was to transform the story into one about a mask wearer who took faces off of corpses to put them on teens and turn them into zombies.
For the kids.
I want to see that. That was not for kids.
I'm just saying,
want to see that story.
No, I'm saying you take that movie into this movie, for PG-13, right?
Initially intended to become a new horror franchise, New Line Cinema offered the job of directing the film to Chuck Russell, who worked with them earlier beforehand.
Chuck Russell.
However, Russell found the violence of the comic to be off-putting and wanted the film to be less grim and more fun than the source material.
Says the guy who directed Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
This is the one where you've got the veins coming out of the guy and he's used like a marionette with his veins. But the violence is off-putting.
He kills a teenager with needles.
Yep.
In that film.
What a rush.
You know. But this is that's too much.
You're a little inconsistent there, Chuck. Just saying. Mike Werb says Chuck Russell tapped him after reading the script for Curious George for Imagine. The two decided to turn The Mask into a wild romantic comedy. Mike Werb wrote the first draft of The Mask in less than 6 weeks, and less than 2 months later, it was greenlit. I don't know. According to Mark Ryden, they had a first draft screenplay for a film version done back in 1990. Ryden then wrote the second draft in early 1991, adding more humor, and that ended up being the only work he did on The Mask, after the film went into development hell. Lovely.
You're ready here.
Yeah. So, casting. Matthew Broderick, Steve Martin, Rick Moranis, and Martin Short were considered for the role of Stanley Ipkiss.
I will give you Martin Short, Marty Short, and I will give you Steve Martin.
Yeah. The other two are fucking out of nowhere.
No, Rick Moranis.
I don't know how that would work. I mean,
he was busy shrinking his kids at this time. You know what I'm saying?
That is very true. And, well, to be fair, he can pull off the nerdy character.
Yeah. Well. Like in those movies.
Yeah.
What, 2 or 3 of them. Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Honey, I Blew Up the Kids, and I think that's it? Or was there a third
Honey,
one?
I Shrunk, Honey, I Blew Up. Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
There was a third one. We'll get there.
Yeah, someday. You know. And the movie I absolutely want, Nicolas Cage was also considered.
Oh, Jesus. You can let him go full Nick Cage with the mask? Mm-hmm. Make that movie now.
Yeah. I want to see that movie. I'm telling you right now.
Because he was crazy in the 90s. He's even crazier now.
Mm-hmm.
And you just go, okay, Nick, go.
Let's just sit back and watch this shit happen.
Just watch the mayhem ensue.
Mm-hmm. According to the Hollywood News, when director Chuck Russell suggested bringing in Carrey to play the Mask, New Line Cinema, the head, they don't say who it is, but I'm hoping it's Bob Shea.
Yeah, Bob Shea.
I'm hoping it's our old buddy Bob Shea. Thought it was, he thought he was off his rocker for suggesting Jim Carrey. This was, Ace Ventura had not come out.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, you're right. Because if that comes out, you're like, of course you get Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
Although it's probably to their benefit that Ace Ventura had not come out yet, because I'm sure whatever Jim Carrey made on this movie, you would have had to triple it.
More than triple. Let me get to the next sentence here. Jim Carrey was paid $450,000 for his work on the film. A huge bargain for New Line because the deal was signed before Ace Ventura: Pet Detective became a surprise hit. Carrey was then paid $7 million before this film opened to star in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
So yeah, they did well.
You saved a lot of money, Bob.
Yes, you
so
did.
Shut up.
Well done, Bob.
Accidentally.
Yes. The role of Stanley Ipkiss was rewritten with Jim Carrey in mind. When director Chuck Russell gave the script to Carrey, he said, "I feel like this was written for me."
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
With the way he plays it, yeah.
Yeah, like no other actor could have pulled this off.
Not this particular character.
No fucking way. One thing that attracted Jim Carrey to the project more than anything else was that Stanley Ipkiss, much like him, is a huge fan of cartoons. Well,
also, like Stanley Ipkiss, you are a cartoon.
Well, that's part of... I mean, how else could Jim Carrey be a fan of cartoons?
Again, Jim Carrey is a cartoon person.
Yes, which is why it worked so well for this role. And there's more on that in a minute. Pardon me. The role of Tina marked the feature film debut for former model Cameron Diaz. Before Diaz was cast, the studio considered casting Vanessa L. Williams, Christy Swanson, Jennifer Connelly, Jerry Ryan, Paige Frentz, Melissa Moore, Vanessa Angel, Kelly Rutherford, and India Allen. There was also a studio offer to Caprice Bure and Anna Nicole Smith. Jesus.
Out of like all of that, like maybe Vanessa Angel?
Yeah, maybe, I guess.
Maybe.
I mean, part of me wants to see Anna Nicole Smith, but that's just for the freak show factor.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sorry, I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but freak show.
But they went with the right choice. Yeah.
Although, Cameron Diaz had auditioned 12 times to get the part.
Jeez,
only landing the role 7 days before shooting began.
I think that's just... Let's just keep bringing her in.
Just
keep bringing her in. I just want to take another look at you.
She's a deal. Yeah. Not now, but then. It's a weird thing.
I mean, Jesus, like, come on, man.
She's just not, it's just my own personal thing. In this movie, I find her extremely attractive, and everything else, never.
26 years ago.
Yeah, but even her next movie, whatever that was, I'm like, wow, she doesn't look as good as she did in The Mask. There was something about the way she looked in this movie.
Wasn't something about Mary, was it?
No.
There's got to be something in between there.
I would assume, because that was like 99, right? I don't know what else she did in between, but...
No.
I thought it was 99, dude.
Oh. You talk.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know what it was. It just never... I never found her attractive outside of this film. I don't know what it is. It's not like she's an unattractive woman. I'm not looking at it going, wow, then there's something fell off of her. It's like, no, it just fell off of her. The hell is wrong?
I would hope not. That's the end of her career.
That is a weird sentence for me to say, but hey, what do you want from me?
Cameron's career was going great until her nose fell off.
It didn't stop some people.
That's true.
New Line Cinema did not want Cameron Diaz for the film since she was a model with no acting experience. Yeah, because that never happens. But Chuck Russell was so insistent on having her that he threatened not to do the film if he didn't cast her.
Yeah, it's a bunch of nothing from what I was hearing. My Best Friend's Wedding was her next, like, big movie. Because it's like, Heard Above Water, Feeling Minnesota, She's the One, The Last Supper.
I think I've seen She's the One, and I don't remember why.
But the next big movie was 97, and that was My Best Friend's Wedding.
I've seen that, too. Yeah. That movie was terrible. But yeah, I never found her attractive out of it. I don't know what it was. Something happened.
Not that matters.
No, again, anyone she is a very attractive person, just not my type. In this movie, yes. Other movies, not so much. Just saying. Studio considered Richard Gere for Lieutenant Mitch Kellaway. I bet they did.
That would have been a waste.
In 94, you're not getting Richard Gere to do this. You're just not.
To be the throwaway kind of antagonist?
Yeah.
I guess that's what he was. Technically, in the end, he was an antagonist, I guess. He kind of helps him in the end, but not really.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't help him at all. because you remember the fucking mayor is just like, oh, he wasn't the mask, leave him alone.
Oh, that's
so he didn't help him at all. Gary Kemp turned down the role of Dorian